was a militancy. And I can say only that we have suffered only because of militancy there and nothing else.
Nirmala Chattoo, celebrated Kashmiri Pundit singer, with over 500 recorded songs between 1963 and 1983, speaking about her life and times. She, like many other Kashmiris, has witnessed decades of turbulence in Kashmir, beginning 1989 when guns and violent threats led to the mass exodus of the minority Hindu community from the idyllic valley.
All other people around us, we were very friendly with each other. We had no problems with them. Because of militancy, all this has happened. And we had to leave that place and go to other places in India and elsewhere.
Quite typically, the answer of a centuries hunted down Kashmiri Pandit community. Centuries of oppression have made them quite reticent in admonishing anyone.
I think in many ways what has happened now makes one appreciate what we've lost even more than before. I mean, I grew up with my ma singing around at home and, being surrounded by music, learning music most of my life till I went to university. But you take that very much for granted. And all the great poets, especially both on both the sides of the religious divide. But I think one appreciates it more because there is a tremendous sense of loss. Although, I left a long time ago and I can't say that I was personally displaced. My parents were, my brother was, most of our other family were, but we were not because I was married and I was living elsewhere. So one has a very different sense of what that loss is. But there's loss that when I go back, I don't particularly want to go back because now I feel almost like an outsider. Because that sense of community, I think, has been disrupted. And I don't think we'll ever get that back. Because what has happened is for the last 2 generations of Muslims in Kashmir, they've not grown up in a neighborhood with a sense of community where the Pandits, and even the Sikhs for that matter, who were part of that community always, are your neighbors and are your best family friends. Some of our best family friends have always been across the divide. Some of my best friends are still from across the divide. So I think the children have not grown up with that. And there's been so much a sense of loss, so much bloodshed in between that I don't feel that I ever go back home. So I avoid going back. I've gone back 2-3 times since then, but it's not the same.
But this program is non-political. It's about celebrated Kashmiri Pandit singer Nirmala Chattoo. She was born in a different era altogether, an era where it was not easy for women to get educated or even to have a career. But despite that, she completed her graduation in music from Srinagar Women's College, and then she moved on to New Delhi to complete her post-graduation in political science from Ramjas College, part of Delhi University. So how difficult was it? Let's find out from her.
Music was in our family.
Right.
We had passion for all, my parents as well as my brothers and my sister. Music was our passion. So in our childhood also, we had a harmonium in our house, we had a gramophone in our house, and we would be glued to radio, always listening to music and singing.
So you
Then After my marriage, I couldn't think of, when I was in college, I was in all activities there, cultural activities. There, I had no problem from my parents' till house.
But
But when I got married, when I got married, so the other family, that was a very conservative family. I couldn't think of going to radio or television and sing there. But my brother-in-law, my husband's sister's husband, he was himself a very good singer on Radio Kashmir.
right.
He knew my talent, and he introduced me to some people, and he told me, why don't you do this? So I couldn't think of it because my father-in-law was a very, very conservative person. He was a great educationist. All other things he was okay, but otherwise he was a conservative person. I couldn't tell him kya I had to, but my late husband, he helped me. He supported me. Without his help, I couldn't have done anything. He supported me. I went for audition. Can't get you.
Did your father-in-law, did Babuji know that you were singing?
No,
Or not?
initially he was not, because I had to change my name there in radio and TV. From Nirmala Chattoo, I was Nirmala Devi. All other relations knew about it. I was singing, and they were very happy about it. But he didn't know it. Then came that Manzrat, Kashmiri film.
I know.
I sang in that. I used to go with my husband there, चोरी छुपे बाबूजी से उनको कहना कि हमें बाहर कहीं जाना है, खाना खाने जाना है. I would go for practicing and I would go for recordings. And that way also I went to Radio Kashmir. I started singing there. Then came TVs there. When TV came there in Srinagar, first program was mine on that TV. And initially when I started singing there, I would get 4 programs in a month. That was too much. Other artists, they were curbing for, okay, we don't get so many programs, but I would get 4 programs, and that was too much for me because I couldn't do anything in my home. I couldn't practice. I couldn't sing. I would चोरी छुपे कहीं कोनों में उधर जाके I would hum a tune. I would do this and go to radio and go to TV. I have done it like that.
You know, your times were difficult times. Tunde bakto os zananan hun kam karun ya gyavun, especially in Kashmir, where it was, sorry to say, but I mean, it's not very pro-Muslim singing and all that, but Kashmiri Muslims are very different because they don't believe in music being bad. There's a lot of rofoi, karwai and all that at Kashmiri weddings. But what was your journey like? It must have been difficult being a woman.
Initially, all Muslims were there. There were permanent 2 lady artists, Raj Begum, great singer, and Naseem Akhtar. They were permanent artists there. They were all alone there. और बाकी भी इंस्ट्रूमेंटलिस्ट जो थे वो भी मोस्टली दे वर मोहम्मदन्स.
बट उस जमाने में काफी मुश्किल होता होगा औरत का बाहर जाना, you know.
मेरे बाद तब तक जब तक मैं गई थी वहाँ, it was a traditional music system there. तो when I started singing there, वो late Virender Mohan, he was music composer, a very, very good music composer. I consider him to be my guru in light music. So he was very fond of my singing. So he gave new turn to Kashmiri poetry. Initially, I started with Ghalib's Ghazals from all poets and Geet and all that. Then he told me, now you start in Kashmiri. I said, I have no problem. I'll do it. So he gave new trend to Kashmiri music. Till then, there was nothing new in Kashmiri music, and everybody knows about it. Then came so many good singers. Then came Kailash Mehra and वो क्या थी उसकी गुलाम नबी की बीवी क्या Shamima Dev, हाँ, Rita Kaul and others, very good singers. Then the whole thing changed. The whole pattern changed after that.
Can I just come on that? I'm listening to
It was very difficult for me because I had to give stage performances. I had to go to forward areas for sing to Faujiyon ke liye programs.
Can I just come on that? I'm listening to
Sangeeta, you were saying something.
Yeah, on that point about how difficult it would have been for women and the differences between the place of music in the Muslim society and the Kashmiri Pandit society, there is a lot of difference. But I think I've heard both Raj Begum, especially Raj Begum, one of her interviews,
and Naseem Akhtar.
And Naseem Akhtar, they used to sing together. She always used to wear a burqa when she came to the station. And she always said that how difficult it was.
Raj Begum was my favorite singer. She was a very good singer. वो रेशमा थी ना पाकिस्तान की. She was, I would call her Reshma. She was singing in that style. बहुत अच्छा.
And then there came a time when Kashmiri started getting, started getting frightened or scared of having songs and dancing public. At least in public, they would not carry out these performances. You know, the time that Mr. Lassa Kaul was assassinated, if I may use the term assassinated or murdered, whatever. There was a time when there was so much of pressure that Kashmir should revert to the traditional Islamic, rejection of music and dancing.
I don't think there was rejection in music. No, when militancy was at its height also, music was going on. Only picture halls were shut down and all that. Nothing happened to music.
So music went on.
Yeah, music went on as it was.
Then came your children. Were you continuing to sing when your children were born? After your children were born, did you continue singing?
क्या बोलती है आवाज नहीं
It's breaking up a little. Did you continue to sing after you had us children? Yeah.
I had.
After you had me and Sanju, after you had children, did you?
Yeah. When I started, she was already born. Then Sanju came.
It's very difficult to understand Kashmiri music because the language, the spoken language, is very different from the one that's used in singing and music. How do you understand those kind of metaphors, and what are some of the common metaphors that are used?
Initially, I told you I started with Gazals, Geets, Bhajans, and I felt comfortable there. But when I started singing in Kashmiri, it touched my soul, really. I thought this is the real music for me. Now I should go for it. Then I would sing in Kashmir. So many people told me, why don't you have got a good voice, you can do this, you can do that. Why are you hankering after Kashmiri music? I would tell them, I like it and I do it.
What Sunita wants to know, Ma, is that she is interested in knowing what is about the language, the Kashmiri language, and the poetry in Kashmiri language that you say that touched your soul. So she's saying, can you please tell her a little bit about, or recite a few couplets, or sing a couplet from one of your the ones that you like a lot?
I don't know whether I can.
At least recite, or just if you can remember anything.
प्रसार भारती ब्रॉडकास्टिंग कारपोरेशन पेश कर एपेक्स प्रोडक्शंस पेशकश خوش نوا خوش نوا خوش نوا कोशरिन मायानाज गुलोकारन से आख मुलाकात तहरीर कोकब कश्मीरी सामीन अस्ची प्रोग्राम खुश नवाहित हजर सानी में प्रोग्राम मुदाछु बोजन वाल तिमन कोशरिन गुलोकारन हिज जिंदगी मुतलिक ज़नियाब करें युंद कोशरी मौसीकी सठा दुच ये जिंदगी इंदिस्ता सफर सख साम है युस सफर ताई करान करान यमो आख थोद मुकाम हासिल को प्रोग्राम के आज की शुमारुक इंतखाब छु कशीर हिज मशहूर गुलकारा निर्मला देवी जी
दोहलू सपदो शाम लोल हो
Can you understand anything?
But there's a lot of difference between spoken Kashmiri and the when I listen to Kashmiri music, I find it very difficult to understand because the spoken language, as we are out of touch now, but the spoken language as spoken by my parents, it still there's a lot of difference between spoken Kashmiri and the Kashmiri that you use in songs. It's more difficult. It's not.
more difficult. It is not the verse. No, but what she means is that the language.
It is not the
verse. No, but what she means is that the language of poetry is different and more difficult as compared to the spoken Kashmiri. Right. That I suppose is true of all languages. You have
some poetry is very easy. That is in plain Kashmiri. Some points that are classical points, their words are different. Otherwise, Kashmiri poetry is very, very sweet. Yeah. And I don't know whether you know it or not. Generally, poetry is addressed to whom?
To the woman.
The male addresses his verses to his beloved. Isn't it that? But in Kashmiri poetry, this is woman who is addressing to her lover.
So how do you feel now about what's happening to the Kashmiri music scenario? How do you, is it growing? Do you find that there is a betterment?
There is a big change in all music these days.
Right.
It is modernized.
Exactly.
But technically, it is superb.
But
from the technical point of view, it is superb.
But from the point of view of keeping alive traditions, the convention of Kashmir, the influence of Bollywood, there is erosion of
But I will tell you one thing. These days, boys and girls, they are very well versed in music and they sing very well these days. I was not aware of it. Now I have started listening to them. They, very good, very sweet songs.
I want to ask you this.
So well.
I want to ask you this in particular. What is the difference between Kashmiri Pandit music and the Kashmiri Muslim music? I know we have the Vazwan, but we also have the Walai Ropoi Karwa, the roof songs.
Vazwan is there. Vazwan is there.
In Muslims as well?
Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
Nothing.
Old music is also there. Chhatri, our folk music. Chhatri
Right.
jo hai. Do you know about Chhatri?
Chakri, Ladisha, I know.
Mati singing, yeah.
Ladisha.
Yes.
Remember.
Yeah. And Sufiana music.
And Sufiana music. But those were influences from the Muslims. But those were Muslim in Islam. I mean, those were the influences from the Muslims that were felt on the Kashmiri music. Has it always been like that?
Tibet Bakal.
Muhammad Tibet Bakal, a great Sufiana Kalam singer. He was worldwide known for his Sufiana music.
And,
there were so many other Sufiana music.
but did he sing in Kashmiri?
That is quite different music.
He did. He sang in Kashmiri.
जैसे मतलब क्लासिकल सिंगिंग में होता है ना, द्रुपद एक है, ख्याल एक है, ठुमरी एक है. सूफियाना कलाम is kalam bhi, that is different, and singing also is different.
Sangeeta, what were your feelings when your mom was, when you were growing up? Your feelings about your mom, was it a different Kashmir, Sangeeta?
It was a very different. But I think it was a different Kashmir even at the point of time, depending on who you were and where you lived. Like I grew up in a neighborhood that was very mixed, possibly more middle class. And
our neighborhood also was mixed. We
Yeah.
were surrounded by Mohammedans, and we would live like a composite family. All sorrows and happiness, they were shared. We
and-
had no problem. They were as good to us as we were to them. They were just brothers, sisters. We would share everything with them, and they would share everything with us. We have had never any problem with them. This time also, old people, whenever they see us, they shed tears. What has happened? Now times have changed. We can't live in this atmosphere. People are saying it is not. We can't blame people. They have done nothing. It was all done by militants. It was militancy, and that is all.
I compare my childhood with where Ma grew up in a very inner city area of Navakadal, which was the hub, what you would call downtown now. Not a single Kashmiri Pandit family lives in that neighborhood now. And similarly, my in-laws side also came from the same area. And my husband's memories of childhood are very different from mine because we grew up in two different parts of the town. But if I hear stories about if I relive the memories of going to my Matamal, like my Nani ke ghar and my Nana ji's ghar, they were all surrounded by Muslims, but the backside of the house was their in-laws, their pitir, like Ma's jo chache or tae ke jo side ke ka jo makan tha, that was the backside. The front was all the gur and all the other people. And then you had, who was your nai, who was your gur? The bakers would be different always. Every neighborhood would have two kinds of gur and two kinds of bakers. So the Kashmiri Pandit will call, the gur was never a Pandit, but the baker was always one Kashmiri and one Pandit. So gur se aap doodh to late the, because that is pakka. So pakka khana is...
I'll tell you one small story of my childhood. I was married. So my parents were in Jammu and my bhabhi was in Srinagar. Our mother got very sick in Jammu. She was hospitalized. We were not told. We didn't know about it. Just in front of my parental house, one Mr. Dar used to live, who were immediate neighbors, and very good relationship. We had a mandir in our lane, Narayan ka mandir, Naranju, the Mrs. Vana Naranjun. उस डार साहब की बेटी आई और she told my भाभी, आज रात को नारायणजू बड़ा वो सफेद वो पहन के चोका पहन के आए, खड़ाऊ पहन के. Nobody knew कि my mother was ill in Jammu. She was hospitalized. We didn't know. That girl didn't know. She said that this Narayan came into my dream and he told me my mother's name was Gunvati. Gunvati chunki hi parvai. So guess ठीक. तो my भाभी was wonderstruck कि हमें तो कुछ नहीं कहा कि वो तो ठीक है. कहा नहीं, आप पूछो, पापा से पूछो. फिर सुना कि my mother was hospitalized. मतलब ऐसी रिलेशनशिप थी हमारी. हम क्या कहेंगे?
I grew up in Habakadal. I mean, I was very young when we left, but I remember when I went back as a journalist, not a single thing was, the house that we lived in was exactly the same. Nobody had entered. It was locked. So we also were surrounded by Muslims. Of course, we had the Pittir, the cousins were all with surrounding houses, but barely 3 or 4 Pandit houses and the rest were all Muslims. I remember that. I think I agree with you on that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I must thank you.
No, I must thank you. See you. Bye.